Welcome back to my little corner of the world. This is Casey's Corner. Surprise! I'm Casey with new earrings. I like my skills. Anyway, back with another episode of What Makes a Hedgewitch. Surprise, as if you didn't know by the title. Also, you could tell by the title, we're going to talk about the witch part of Hedgewitch. I've done a lot of talking about the hedge and aspect of Hedgewitch, and a lot of, my version of what the witch part, the preacher, Hagen Preacher, is what I'm trying to say, is what I'm trying to call back to, is that aspect of hedgewitchery. But I wanted to talk about, I was inspired by, I was listening to the Clever Kim's podcast. She's got God, my brain broke for a second. It's the Your Average Witch. There we go. I knew I'd get it out. I was listening to that podcast today. Definitely recommend it. I'll drop it below. But yeah, I was listening to it. I was inspired by a conversation that she was having on there with one of her guests. What she does is she interviews your average witch, different witches all over the place. And her guest in one of her new episodes today was saying they don't claim the label witch anymore. And shocker, on a show about witches. So definitely very interesting conversation, because I felt the journey that she's on right now, because there was a while where I didn't claim the name witch either. I didn't claim that label. I went and was just like pagan for a while. Would be the one I prefer to go by and stuff. I took a step back, because I needed to take that journey. And so I was just really excited hearing this conversation with someone else on that journey. So first, I wanted to talk about, why does this become a journey for people? Because the definition is hard. You look up the definition of a witch in modern dictionaries and modern culture, and the reality, humanity of a witch is very much told us it's like gone, it's non-existent, which is very purposeful. We live in a society that was built actively for a couple of thousand years to be a patriarchal Christian narrative, and that had no room for knowledgeable women in respected roles of power in communities. That was outside the hierarchy, and especially stubborn women that wouldn't bow down and become a part of it and wouldn't sign over their property to the church when the church and the king decided it was law that they could take whatever property they want. So we live with that legacy. So when we look up the word witch, let's see, in my handy dandy college dictionary that was gifted to me, and that I'm using my scrunchie, my sunflower scrunchie, as a bookmark for, you'll see all of these are very common, these like modern definitions. A person, especially a woman, who professes or is supposed to practice magic, especially black magic, sorceress. And that sorcerer, it goes back to the Bible. Like that's the Christian, influence here on those who wrote these books. In this one, witch, sorceress, it's the first one that pops up, especially in folklore. A woman believed to practice sorcery, a bewitching woman. Like, it's all very much, gendered and associated with women. Even though you look at the history of it, that wasn't, you look at the laws, you look at the court cases, it wasn't just women that were prosecuted as witches. There were plenty of men. They used the word witch when they were referring to these men. But because we grew up in a society, particularly, including into the last century, I mean, we're still working to change this, where those in the most powerful decision-making roles are still, a majority are white, Judeo-Christian, Abrahamic type. That's their perspective and the influence they're coming from. So when they make these decisions about the definitions to put on places that they're still putting on places right now, I have pulled up, if you Google witch, first thing that pops up is, as the definition, it's the dictionary from Oxford Languages: a woman thought to have magic powers, especially evil ones, popularly depicted as wearing a black cloak and pointy hat and flying on a broomstick. And then you see a bunch of pictures over on the side that are just like, the stereotypical fictionalized, purposefully, crafted image of a witch. It's that, the gnarled and there's one lady in a cloak and like this in the woods and all gnarled looking nose, and others in pointy hats and things. And it's, it's a carefully crafted image, especially over the past 1,000 years, meant to denigrate and silence and dehumanize, particularly women who've been around the block a while and know things. There's there's a reason that stereotype of, a crone and the haggard old woman who, these things came about for a reason. We are living, in a world built, particularly us in the West, we're built by Western patriarchy. So these are the images that we come up with. And so, when people take a step back from, when they claim the word witch, I often wonder if they are knowing all these things, if they're looking at all these things when they do make that claim and stuff. Because a lot comes with this. Even, and you have to work to know that to know the history of the word. You still will get the modern view. Let's see here, in a modern book, becoming a witch is an awakening, a remembering, an initiation. You hear a lot of that in these modern books of that version of it's without like poof, it's just poof, it came out of nowhere in some bubble without any history to it. This book, my academic history book about the it's Triumph of the Moon, A History of Modern Pagan Witchcraft. The definition of the word witch is so complicated. There isn't really one in here. Like, this whole book is it. Like, you will get a couple paragraph long discussion about what the definition for pagan witchcraft will be in this book from this perspective, because it's a complicated thing with the history to it. That's why I recommend this book, because this word does come to us from the Western European, British, UK, perspective. And it's, you can't get away from that, by just, pretending that poof, all of this, oh, you just came to this out of nowhere. Let me get these down out of my way. Without some history to it. That's what I'm trying to say. So that's why, when I decided, when I went through, after I listened to the story, let me focus for a second, to that podcast this morning and that woman's story and what she's going through. I was thinking, about how I went through, it was like my, 3 stages of the word witch and my usage of it. And first on, it was, it was something that was everywhere. It was ubiquitous. We were coming hot on the end of, my youth was, hot on the end of the Satanic Panic. So that word was just, it was everywhere in the culture. And if you were a weird kid and were stirring up dirt and mud and stuff and making potions to get rid of the ants on your property and things, you're gonna get called a witch. And so that word, it was, and if you're, and then later, you're reading all these books and it's just, it was always put on me. And then when people would ask, as I'm reading all these witch books, and they're like, oh, are you a witch? And I'm like, yeah, I am. And, I just fell into it, like, yep, that's me. And, I mean, so much so even, to the point where I was happy to defend myself against a whole bunch of Christians, yelling and screaming and harassing me for being that. In high school, I faced a lot of repercussions for claiming that name. And, and for me, I was doing it for myself, but I didn't understand the entire history of it, other than I knew it was very much defined by that Christian narrative. My whole life it had been defined by what the Christians told me it was, what they told me I was, because of how they felt about it. And then when I decided, okay, yeah, that is what I am. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with it. Really pissed them off. And then I went through a period where I began to reflect upon, I was feeling, the older I got into the world, into my early 20s, my late teens, early 20s, I really felt this world wasn't for me. In the stores I went to, I felt talked down to and ignored, and in the books I read and things, I wasn't represented, and I said this somewhere earlier, it felt like, I couldn't fit into their box because I'm mixed. I have, Hispanic heritage, I have Irish heritage, I have who knows what from mom's side. I have, we have this generational blockage where we don't know where we come from, other than this vague understanding that we have some Mexican and Irish from my grandfather, where his mother came from Ireland, and my grandmother's father was from Mexico. We know these things, but that's about it. But even that I didn't know these things for sure until my later 20s. My early 20s, no, I didn't know anything about my history. And then here come, in all these books I needed, they wanted me to fit into this box of this highly appropriated form of witchcraft. And the more, I learned the history of it and learned about the, the early, 1900s and 1800s stages of the revivals and things, I wasn't comfortable with that name. I took a step back and I wasn't claiming witch. I was just, okay, I'm pagan and I'm continuing to reflect on it. I'm not really sure about, maybe I'm kitchen witch, maybe, I kind of tiptoed into that later. But for a long time I was just I'm not going to claim this word anymore. I'm not going to face this assault for this word. For this label, that's not going to be my fight right now. That, frankly, this fight felt like the fight of a bunch of, wealthy white ladies from New England, and the UK, and none of them reflected me. And, and a fair amount of them were making stuff up, is how I felt. And so I had to take a step back. And I spent about, almost like a decade from there reflecting and doing further study and experiencing, and tiptoeing back into using the label and, because for a long time I would just say I admitted on a Pagan Parents page. It's called Pagan Parents. It's still there. I'm still in admin. You can still find it on Facebook. But it wasn't until after I decided, okay, I am rededicating myself to a practice of witchcraft, and did a whole, and then I started, dabbling into, okay, am I kitchen witch and different kinds of, green witch and eclectic witch and worked around all those labels and did a lot of reflecting and realized, like, I just had always been a hedge witch. And like it was all kind of fell into place and stuff, but I had people telling me, no, that's not what you are, or no, because they didn't know me. They felt I was a lot of people feel, if they don't really get to know me, they feel I'm very bubbly and soft and I was okay with having that weak image, and because I'm a raw nerve and stuff, but it also was very frustrating that, they would dismiss me like, oh no, you can't be a gray witch, you're just, I'm like, excuse you, you don't even know me. You're just some random person on the internet. Okay, bye. I had to, go through a lot and do a lot of reflection and over a lot of years, long story short, to decide in the end, I'm reclaiming the word witch. I am, claiming the word hedgewitch as my, type of witch. And these are all the reasons why. So that's what makes a Hedgewitch series is all about, is that there is more to these words that we use than just these, one-off throwaways. It's, what I came to, it was an awakening and stuff. And it's like, there's also these like big historical factors and these historical powers and that can what is the word I'm trying to, like, the levels of balance of power is still being worked out, and it's in this past like decade, especially the past like 5 years, where I have found a community, particularly, getting in at the Hearth Wisdom store. That's owned, they're Black-owned, woman-owned, veteran-owned, company. They're badass over there, and that was like the first place where I really felt accepted, empowered, seen as myself. I remember telling my husband how special it felt not to be talked down to in a patronizing way. When I go there, especially talking to the owner, gosh, see, like, I'm gonna cry. You see, there's a lot of pain associated with, that I'm still dealing with. You can just see, like, it's still right there on the edge. That I went through with those early years of being an out witch in the world of witches, and pagans and stuff, and that's why these days I am, that's part of why I've, tried to work more through my own, anxieties and issues and, my social anxieties and things, so I can be more out there and present and representing, representing for all those those, mixed witches of, those lost generations just trying to heal all those wounds of, just filling all those puzzle pieces of that heritage that was flat out stolen from us. I remember my grandmother, regretting she never taught her kids Spanish because, like, it was literally, like, she would get hit if she spoke it in school because she went to a Catholic school. And she'd get hit with a yardstick. And so she thought it'd be safer for her kids not to teach them those things. Whole generations of people don't know their history, and it's okay for them to learn and, find something for themselves and build something for themselves in this world of witches. Particularly, I just don't let anybody kick you out and make you feel like, and don't just take the name without, knowing you're going to be taking on a lot of stuff if you take on this label and stuff. These are real heavy, these words, they count, they mean things. They've been around for a very, very long time and have been used against people, have been used as legal terms to punish people, and take their property away from them and to kill them. So just, know these things, and they've been used to silence people and stuff. So just, it's okay to question the word. It's okay to go through that journey. It's okay to know all these things and own the word and say, yes, I'm taking it back. I'm going to continue that journey on. I didn't even touch on, how, all the male witches, like I touched a little bit on, because there's a history of male witches, just reading, the criminal records and the laws that were made, and then, looking through the archaeological records even further back and stuff. It was just, this was just the way people practiced, their connection to nature and the energies of the earth. And these languages, we placed on them came later, and then these biases and things come, and then, my heart gets broken for the male and masculine witches in my life that feel like there's not a place for them. They start questioning it because of all this stuff that is very much, again, applied on it later from a perspective that's, that can change. It's changed a lot, and we can be a part of the change by acknowledging and discussing and accepting and, and making a place for our marginalized witches, for one, by being welcoming when they come in your store, and by publishing their books. I want more books from everyone. So yeah, and it's amazing to see that these days. It's a wonderful time to be alive. I keep telling my husband we're living in a new renaissance if we choose it, and I am choosing it. I am a patron of the arts. Anyway, so I'm gonna go ahead and end that there. That's my journey to witch, and that's it is what you make of it. If you claim the word, go for it. If you don't, go for it. You do you, man. I love you. Talk to y'all later.